So it's one-on-one now, and Rambo believes that momentarily he will have Teasel all to himself and right where he wants him. And Teasel's running off, screaming like a baby girl, and Rambo, unstealthily for a change, begins his hunt and chases after him. You know, we kind of saw in the last scene how he was kind of toying with them. You know, he knew exactly where they were. He let Teasel crawl around so he could try and take the others out, you know, toyingly. And what should have been a 5-minute pursuit slowly and arduously becomes a chase lasting for hours through the night. To a cliff face, past a niche, over the dead bodies that were scattered around, and rubble, and off the bluff, down the slope, past the draw, through the grass, then the trees, past the red earth, through the dark skies, and, you know, the returning rain. So Rambo, by the cover of the night, crawls through the grass after Teasel in an effort not to be seen. Following bits of noise off in the distance, he can make out by Teasel, who's like really stumbling around. And for about an hour, he you know, he listens around and tossles around, and he tightly rebounds the belt around his waist because it keeps coming undone. My guess it's because, you know, he's crawling and his ribs are mashed so bad that the belt is sliding, you know, feeling his bones lancing his insides, and he doubles over in agony and rises to his feet, hearing Teasel not far off in the distance, and continues. So the chase rages on up a slope of trees, over a spine of rock, down a patch of, you know, shale to a stream, across that, along a bank, across it again, through more woods and across a ravine. And the pain hits Rambo as he jumps across the ravine. He almost falls in, so we can see that he's starting to stumble now. He's starting to not be at the peak that he was in the previous war mode. He continues, and with every right foot forward, his whole right side, from his foot to his ribs and to the top of him, displays like ferocious pain. And he feels it, you know, like his ribs are poking against his insides. Sorry, and he gets sick twice and moves on. So Teasel's running on, you know, barely intact, going off balance, you know, cutting his pants and knees, and knowing Rambo's not that far behind. He gets to a top of a point, and he starts firing down through the dark at Rambo 6 times, I think. Then evades a shot from Rambo, who's firing back as he falls off the short cliff. So Teasel's knocked out momentarily and loses his pistol, but Hurley, you know, recovers to get up and run off again, hearing Rambo approaching in the distance, and running almost blind, like smacking into trees. And he thinks back to a time at his desk, when he was sitting at his desk before all this happened, when he was drinking with his feet, you know, up on the desk, leaning back, drinking hot bean with bacon soup, the expensive kind that says, like, don't add water on a label. So Rambo's so close that he can hear Weasel's teasing. Teasel wheezing, and Rambo realizes he's getting careless and dreary, kind of like falling here and there, and then comes face to face with some brambles that tear right into his face, you know, and deep inside those brambles is Teasel. But Teasel's a little further in, and Rambo doesn't want to shoot him. He wants it to be personal, like up close and personal. So Teasel's getting away through them, through the brambles. And Rambo wants to go through, but then I guess he thinks back to, you know, snagging his sack on the thorns from that earlier scene when he ran into the first time running into the trees when it was cutting into his naked body. So he he tries to figure out like another way to do it. Yeah, and you know, he tries to go around them, but they run for like miles. And by the time he doubles back looking for Teasel's entrance point where he was earlier, it's too dark and he's lost him, unfortunately. So Rambo collapses and begins crying and moaning, and he's kind of fighting himself, but comes to terms, but kind of doesn't come to terms, and he's finally breaking because he can see the damage he's causing and his effects on others, and really that he wanted this to happen. And it wasn't any longer just about, you know, this person versus this person, the right, the wrong, the hero, the villain. And he decides he doesn't want to kill anymore. And he like breaks down, and his clothes are ripped, and his body's slashed, and his ribs feel like they're on fire, and his hands are pulpy, and he decides, you know, he's won for the moment, and that it was a fair fight. And like, you know, that, you know, considering, you know, back to war times, that no one wins. Everybody eventually loses. And he's trying to come to terms with what it was all for. And so, you know, at that point he decides to let Teasel live because he thinks that, oh, you know what, Teasel's earned it. And, you know, he's going to be scarred with it forever anyway. So he comes to acceptance, thinking that Teasel deserved, you know, to live after what hell he had put him through. And for the first time he could remember, he was, you know, relaxed and softly crying, and, you know, like he was just letting it all go. And it's a great moment. You know, he's crying softly and just letting it out. And I guess he feels good about it because, or bad about it too, because it's like first time since the war where he's gotten this far with someone that he felt he was threatened, that he could just let it go. Like, for the first time in a long time, a change had really come before him, and, you know, the last 6 months were hell for him because he couldn't come to that. And this whole ordeal, it just led to him being able to accept things, you know, what he was. Because Rambo really hates himself. And it really comes across in the book that he hates himself. And, you know, even though he's going to start fighting himself again, he's his own worst enemy. You know, for the moment he feels like he could do something better with this situation and let it go. So, meanwhile, Teasel's terrified, and he's still on the move, and he's still trying to get away, and he's actually really tearing through those miles of brambles. You know, he's like underneath them, and he's going for it. And they're like, you know, just giant thorns cutting and slashing, and literally filleting his body, you know, his bare back top half as well as his clothed bottom portions. You know, dragging mud into his pants and bits of thorns, you know, and every time he moves, he's tangled even more within them. But he still forges on, almost drowning in bits of flesh and blood and thick, deep mud from the rain, and this wriggling and wiggling and gouging, and it continues for pages. And he still wants to kill Rambo now, and eventually he passes out, I guess, from the pain and stress he suffered, or suffering, I should say. And he later on, he awakes paranoid to early morning twilight, and like a porcupine, barbs and thorny hooks, and it's covering his whole body, sticking out of his skin all over the place, and now he can see it, you know. So he moves on through more torture and more torture, this time being able to see everything around him, like the brambles and everything. So he knows where he's going through, and it's pretty horrific. And he eventually gets out, crawling across a field and laughing hysterically, unable to stand, just to crawl, throwing up, and laughing at the bile-filled puke that comes out of him. And he makes a joke about raspberry pie, and it's pretty funny. And he crosses like furrows and eventually finds a ditch, and he's drinking muddy water to help his parchment. And he can't even think continuously by this point. Like, even when he's thinking of Rambo, he can't, fill in the blanks. He can't keep it continuous. It kind of spills away from him, and he has to start over. And he can't keep anything straight. So, like, imagine that. That's crazy. That's someone at their last end. And he truly is. So, he worms his way, thinking that if he can escape, he'll beat Rambo because he's a better not a better fighter than Rambo, but a better organizer. And he shreds himself through like a barbed wire fence, like literally shreds himself through it, and because he can't even stand up, so he like crawls through the fence, and his gut, gets all fucking cut up, and his body and his bare skin and everything, and collapses in a ditch beside like a gravel road, and he's completely lost his sense of touch and feel, and he's completely lost within his mind as well. So he's lying there, and he vows to himself to get revenge for all his men that have fallen, and himself and Orville. And a state trooper finds him, but Teasel is only able to like repeat the same things over and over, like his plan of attack over and over. And the officer is perplexed and shaken over the sight of this once highly respectable man. So that does it for Act 2. Next week we're going to go into Act 3, the final act. We're a little over halfway through the book now, and the review just gets better. If you haven't got this book or read this book, you should. It's amazing. It's truly a work of art. Don't just go by my review. Actually, it's really worth the read. Like, I'm only skimming over things. There's so many pages within each thing that I'm pointing out that delve so deeply into this book. Like, deeply into the character, deeply into the story. You believe you're there, and it's just amazing. Like, you could listen to this whole review and then go back and read the book, and you're gonna find 10 things for every one thing I say. So the review kind of gives things away, but at the same time I guess it's not, because it's a whole other experience reading the book. A really long and gracious and beautiful and eloquent one too. So go out and get that book, and I'll see you next time when we start Act 3. So thanks for watching. Later. Oh, sorry. And one last thing is that I just want to say that David Morrell, if you ever hear this, this is just beautiful. Like, this just touches my heart in so many ways and makes me feel almost every emotion at the same time, every range. And you're just brilliant with this. The labor of love you put into this is just wow. For a debut novel, this is solid gold. It's just, one of the most beautiful things I've ever had the opportunity and privilege to read, and it's just great. So, yeah, I'll see you guys next time, and try to have a good one, and love you all. Bye.